Welcome to the 126th broadcast of the T-ROH show. This is your host, Keith. I got John with me.
Good morning, folks.
Alrighty, so what we got here today is we're going to be talking a little bit more in detail about social compacts and what is involved with them, because in essence, you're going to see from the law of the land how imperative they are. Now, we've gotten a lot of people that, or not a lot of people, some people come in and they freak out over a social compact. A lot of that is because no one trusts each other in this country. And I get that. You can get that, right, John? No one trusts each other here.
That's for sure.
And it takes a while for that trust to start manifesting itself and that kind of thing, okay? Because everybody becomes responsible for everybody else. And they don't, it's not a socialism thing. It's individuals coming together under a social compact and an agreement. So, we'll get into that in a second. For a second, we would like to thank everybody for their listening to the show, because I would like to show this here. These are the stats for just May, on May 4th. And that's 2,617,356 requests on the T-ROH show. And data transferred is 3.13 terabytes. So we really do appreciate 94.11 gigabytes per day as people are watching the T-ROH show. And we really do appreciate people watching it. It's really great. It's a testamentary to what we're actually doing and the message that we're giving out on the T-ROH show. So we really thank everybody for watching it and participating. That's just 4 days. So that's we're having a good month. Last month we had skipped a couple of videos, and obviously the stats went down because the videos weren't there. We didn't. It was like a week or two that we didn't do a video, but that's expected. So at any rate, we're going to talk about a little bit about correction reactions. Okay, when we do a correction, in other words, we show people what they're actually doing. Here, fix this, type deal. If we do this with the U.S., the company, they usually fix it, no problems. If they see that it's a mess, they'll fix it. They don't take it personal. They don't start personally attacking us and calling us a fraud and putting out slander and putting out all these things and demonizing and all that stuff. They usually just fix it. And how many times have you seen that, John?
Almost repeatedly every time we show where correction is needed.
Right. Now, it doesn't matter if we're yelling. It doesn't matter if we're doing it really calm. It doesn't matter either way. They see it. They fix the problem. No issues whatsoever. That's an example. If someone said, or we found a major problem with this government, the government of the United States of America, we would just fix the problem. It's nothing personal. That's the way it works internationally. Nothing personal. You can have 15 countries all over you, calling you this and calling you that. Hey, fix this problem. You fix the problem, everything goes away, and everybody forgives it, and it's over. Problem solved. And the national governments that are put up in place and everything need to watch those reactions and start emulating them and copying them, because it's nothing personal. Just fix the problem. We move on. No problem. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in case somebody hasn't seen this, we're going to go in and talk about the law of nations. A few things here. I'm just going to read. This is chapter 2, page 87. It says, this obligation, so natural to each individual of God's creation, it is not derived to nations immediately from nature, but from the agreement by which civil society is formed. It is therefore not absolute, but conditional. This is to say, it supposes a human act, to wit, the social compact. So the social compact has to be in place in order for the society to be formed. If the social compact is not there, there is no society. I can't stress that enough. The society does not exist. And what you have, in accordance to the law of nations, is called a black market. It's all black market. Because the people in that so-called state, the social compact is absent. Therefore, you have a company, a corporation, and not an actual state. That's how it operates. So, how does the law of nations see you? So let's go to your identification. Okay, and everybody would like to say that because they're all lost. And when you don't know who or what you are and how something sees you and how you're looked at, everybody is essentially lost. And that's not a good place to be. That's a very scary place to be. If you don't know what your position is and who you are, you really are going to have issues and major problems. And there are a lot of theories out there instead of just going to the book that tells you what you are. So, in section 213 of inhabitants, 218 here, and many I remember the big whole thing that everybody was supposed to be a peaceful inhabitant. Remember that? It was a movement a couple of years ago. Do you remember that, John?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. Well, if you're just a peaceful inhabitant, they'll leave you alone. If you're just a peaceful inhabitant, they'll leave you alone. And it's funny, but it's true. Now, this is an actual inhabitant. Okay, the inhabitants, as distinguished from citizens, and you can actually replace that with nationals, either way you want, it's fine, are foreigners who are permitted to settle and stay in the country. I'll read that again. The inhabitants, as distinguished from citizens, are foreigners who are permitted to settle and stay in the country. Okay? So there it is. Absent a social compact, you're considered a foreigner. And you're considered an inhabitant. It was written that way in the Articles of Confederation, in the inhabitants thereof. Okay? Bound to the society by their residence, which means you can't get out of anything. And if the society is made up of a company, or whatever they want to call themselves, is still not under a social compact, so it's not necessarily lawful or legal. Either way, that's all they can do because the people are refusing to trust each other and the people are refusing to sign a social compact to form a society which forms a state and nation. Okay? Bound to the society by their residence, they are subject to the laws of the state while they reside in it, and they are obliged to defend it because it grants them protection, though they do not participate in all the rights of citizens. That's what you have an electoral college for. Now you understand the voting issue. And maybe you might understand now why you keep being called a nation of immigrants over and over and over again. They're trying to tell you something. They enjoy all the advantages which the law or custom gives them. The perpetual inhabitants are those who have received the right of perpetual residence. These are a kind of citizens of an inferior order and are united to the society without participating in all its advantages. Their children follow the condition of their fathers, and as the state has given to these the right of perpetual residence, their right passes to their posterity. Okay, so you can't claim to be from another country, come into this country and say and claim that you have sovereign immunity. That doesn't work. It's illegal as hell. All you are is an inhabitant. You're a foreigner. You're permitted to stay here, but that's about it.
I believe the term they use here mostly in this by the company up here, resident alien.
Right. The company uses that. Yeah. Non-citizen, non-resident alien.
Yes.
Okay. And what was the other one? There wasn't it. There was a little website that was selling diplomatic web or diplomatic plates for $300 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. And I was looking at them and said they can't say that because it violates the law of nations, Section 213. So if you can't say you're a diplomat or claim embassy rights or something like that because you're not a part of that society, you're subject to it. This is where it says it right here. They are subject to the law of the states, laws of the state. You can't sue them. You're subject to them unless you have a social compact. Okay? A nation or the sovereign who represents it may grant a foreigner the quality of citizen, but admitting him into the body of political society. This is called naturalization. Okay, so that's why everybody, when they go through the United States of America to the states of the Union, they're being naturalized. All of you are being naturalized in. Your person's being delivered offshore from the Internal Revenue Trust into the states of the Union, and you enter into a social compact with other people within your state. Now, a dictator wouldn't even tell you this, wouldn't even offer it to you, wouldn't offer you equality whatsoever. They would say, oh, just go do this form or go do that form. It makes you, it gets you out. It won't tell you that they're making you, that your condition is an inhabitant. And it doesn't make you non-subject. Okay, so it's two separate deal. It's an inferior order. So if you have not signed a social compact, this is where you are right here. You're considered an inhabitant, a foreigner. But you're still subjected. So we're trying to fix that. It's absolutely free to do. You can do a resident declaration. Then you go to the newspaper and register your person, and that gets published. And then you go sign the social compact, and all that's basically free. There's nothing really much to it than that. There are some states in which the sovereign cannot grant to a foreigner all the rights of citizens. For example, that of holding public offices. Okay, so what does that tell you? Right here in the U.S., they have some people that are considered part of the Nation of Islam that do not have the right under the law of nations to hold public offices. However, they do, so that makes it a company. Okay, that makes it a company. And where consequently he has the power of granting only an imperfection naturalization. It is here a regulation of the fundamental law which limits the power of the prince. Okay, this is dealing with principalities. It goes back and forth. In other words, the law of nations can deal with the people and a state, or the people and a prince or king. So it's both. They're both the same thing. Okie dokie. Here we go on the next one. Okay, here's some more. It says, as to those who have cowardice to abandon their country in a time of danger and seek to secure themselves instead of defending it, they manifestly violate the social compact by which all contracting parties engage to defend themselves in a united body and in concert. They are infamous deserters whom the state has a right to punish severely. In time of peace and tranquility, when a country has no actual need of all her children, and the very welfare of the state, and that of the citizens, requires that every individual be at liberty to travel on business, provided that he always be ready to return whenever the public interest recalls him. It is not presumed that any man has bound himself to the society to which he is a member by an engagement never to leave the country, and the interest of his affairs requires it, and when he can absent himself without injury to his country. So you have to look at yourself. What kind of person that knows the law of nations abandons his country rather than using that knowledge that was bestowed upon him to help fix his country. That's somebody who hides the way, not enters into in himself, and would hinder those that would enter. That's where that comes from. There are cases in which a citizen has an absolute right to renounce his country and abandon it entirely. A right founded on reasons derived from the very nature of the social compact. If a citizen cannot procure subsistence in his own country, it is undoubtedly lawful for him to seek it elsewhere. For political and civil society being entered into only with the view of facilitating to each of its members the means of supporting himself and living in happiness and safety, it would be absurd to pretend that a member whom it cannot furnish with such things as are most necessary has not the right to leave it. If the body of the society or he who represents it absolutely fail to discharge their obligations towards a citizen, the latter may withdraw himself. For if one of the contracting parties does not observe his engagements, the other is no longer bound to fulfill his, for the contract is reciprocal between the society and its members, and is on the same principle also that the society may expel a member who violates its laws. Okay, so there's many things based on this. If you go into the Law of Nations, they're page 223. And it goes on as far as inhabitants are concerned. So that being said, those that are not under, now I'm not professing this is coming from the Law of Nations. Those who are not under a social compact and have not formed a society, you're a foreigner. And you are subject to those that are within a social compact and form the society. You are still subject to laws. You cannot claim sovereign immunity. It doesn't work that way. That's not what the Law of Nations says, and that's basically it on as far as that's concerned. So you go to the courts. This is what happens when you don't have a social compact. You go to the courts. You walk in there. You're automatically in an arraignment. Well, we're in an arraignment. This is court procedure. Guilty or not guilty? Well, I don't know what's going on here. Well, I'll enter a plea for you. Not guilty. Next court date is 30 days from now. Then they put the little gavel down and you move on. Next case. It goes on like that. Okay? Now, all cases in a civil society, not a barbaric society, a civil society, you're innocent until proven guilty, which means the case always starts out civilly. It's always a civil case, no matter what. And within the civil case, it starts there. Have you ever noticed that when you can't, that they do it the exact opposite? When you can't convict a guy of a crime, then they sue him civilly? Really? That's kind of the opposite way, wouldn't you think? Well, we found him guilty civilly, so it's a civil law. He just did it the exact opposite way it's supposed to be done, because that's guilty to proven innocent. Okay, so when you go into a courtroom, you're supposed to be, it's a civil case. Which means in a civil case, you have rules of evidence. You're able to bring up anything under the rules of evidence that pertains to the case. It's not so narrow, as in guilty or not guilty. But they always skip that, don't they? There might be civil rights violations or violations of the Law of Nations in the case. But you're never going to know that, especially if a judge is proclaiming that there are no civil rights and violations in the case, and he pleads for you. Because no pleading in a court of law can happen in a criminal case if it has civil rights violations involved against the accused. What do? We'll just skip that part. We're going to just proclaim that there's no civil rights violations. And we're going to move forward right with the criminal trial so that we can narrow it down. You either have a license or you don't. Okay? Then you're told license is a privilege. I got no issues with that. Driving is a privilege. Have no issues with that either. Not arguing that at all. But when did your privilege get handed over to the DMV? When did you sign it over to them for them to license it back to you? It was arbitrary. So somebody took your privileges away. Why? Because you have no social compact with that society. You're considered an inhabitant, and you're a foreigner, and you're subject to whatever they want to do to you. You see, a dictator doesn't hide this information, or a dictator hides this information from you. Doesn't just come out and tell you here and say, here's the way to go. You can enter in yourself, and nobody's going to hinder that. And everybody that has that's telling you this has gone through it themselves, and they entered it. They entered themselves also. So that's to bring you as an inhabitant, a foreigner, back into your country, so you have equal rights. See, a dictator doesn't do that. And a dictator does not show you where it is in the law of nations where you can gain your rights back. And it's all written right there in plain sight. And a dictator does not provide a way and means for you to do that. However, if you do violate it, violate your social compact, it is reported. It's as simple as that. And you can't attack the messenger and demonize the messenger. It doesn't work that way. All the messenger is doing is holding up an oath. Upholding an oath. That's all the messenger is doing. So these things start happening to you. And you whine, bitch, and complain. Now you have the remedy. So all that whining, bitching, and complaining needs to go away. The correction is there. Do not demonize the one who is showing you where the correction needs to be made. You take it as an adult and you say, okay, we've messed up so far. So all this is basically our fault. And it is. When I say our, including this person here and anybody on the call, it was all our fault. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. So we can't say, well, we didn't know, or I didn't know where to go. There's no excuses there. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Take it like a man and take it like a woman. That's the way this world works. It's harsh. It's a harsh world. But you can fix it. There's not a problem fixing it. With a simple signature, joining other American nationals and residents who have done the same. Then you get together under your social compact. You can form your national government, which was intended for that state because it was intended to be an independent state. Every state was intended to be an independent state. And sorry to say, folks, that those that want to jump in like communists and socialists and all that and try to form a social compact and create a socialist a government, all those states just happen to be in trust with the government of the United States of America and their metes and bounds until those states are operating. So sorry, can't get them. It's already done. They're being preserved for a republic form of government only, which means the people, not the state. The people don't belong to the state. The people create the state through social compact. Therefore, the state cannot go past the social compact agreements. And the people are able to amend the social compacts as they see fit, so that in case they see their benefits or the benefits of their social compact and their state leaving them. Because in the absence of a social compact, the state is dissolved. In the absence of a social compact, the state is dissolved. I bet you nobody knew this. If a major part of a nation or the sovereign who represents it attempt to enact laws relative to matters in which the social compact cannot oblige every citizen to submission, those who are adverse to these laws have a right to quit the society and go settle elsewhere. For instance, if the sovereign or the great part of the nation will allow but one religion in the state, those who believe and profess another religion have the right to withdraw and to take with them their families and effects. For they cannot be supposed to have subjected themselves to the authority of men in the affairs of conscience. And if the society suffers and is weak-ended by their departure, the blame must be imputed to the intolerant party. For it is that they who fail in their observance of the social compact, it is they who violate it and force others to a separation. We have elsewhere touched upon this in some other instances of the third case, that of a popular state wishing to have a sovereign, and that of an independent nation taking resolution to submit to a foreign power. And that's correct, it does do that. I've read those sections. Here's another section. And as compacts may be dissolved by common consent of the parties, if the individuals that compose a nation, that's right here, should unanimously agree to break the link that binds them, it would be lawful for them to do so, and thus to destroy the state or nation. But they would doubtless incur a degree of guilt if they took this step without just and weighty reasons. So, for civil societies are approved by the law of nature, which recommends them to mankind as the true means of supplying all their wants and effectually advance towards their own perfection. Okay, so without a social compact, there's the destruction of a nation or state, which exists in name only. And that's what gave this government the authority that was founded on a social compact to put those states in trust, to be preserved for those who were behind us in knowledge and in study, waiting for them to catch up to where we were, which was the reason why we started the T-ROH show, to bring everybody up to speed on what was going on, so that when they did their resident declaration, changed their name, and went into the social compact, they knew exactly what they were doing. There's been probably 3 or 4 people out of many that have had issues. Some of those issues are their own fault because of lack of study or lack of knowledge. The company acknowledges this and set up a tort claim system that allows you to do an alien tort claim in violation of the law of nations. Okay, the company did set that up. Whether they use it, I don't know. Doesn't really matter. But if you were never a part of a social compact, if your mother and father have never signed one, then you never had a society. In accordance with the law of nations, you are considered inhabitants and or foreigners to that state and subject to that state as well. Okay, so that's why you have a that's why you have a private membership association running the states. They make all the laws that benefit them, to benefit them. They run it as companies, and the rest of the people were foreign to it. They didn't write their social compact that created it. That's why you have all this problem. The only way to fix it is to go to the social compact, sign it. Now you have a say. You're a part of it. And this is why the national governments were set up. I'm not saying that it's all going to be perfect, because you're going to have problems here and there, just like any state does, especially when you're dealing with ignorant people that think they believe, or believe that they are something that they're not. They were told they were something, but they're not. They were raised that way. For instance, when did the people, I'll give you a couple of more questions here. When did the people sign a social compact, thereby giving the local sheriff their policing authority? Never had it. Oh, well, they voted for us. Oh, okay. Well, that was under two companies. Those were political parties that were created by, and their companies. They're private companies. Private companies are not national political parties, so they're not. They don't fall under the law of nations. They do, but they don't. Okay. In other words, they are subject to it, but they don't. They don't abide by it anyways, because they become so powerful. When they become so powerful, they begin to usurp all kinds of things and lie to people about all kinds of things that aren't there, to keep you in that inhabitant condition. That's what they're doing. So that's the way it works. So the original states went into trust. 15 of them were removed from that trust and given to people that had signed their social compact and all that. They filled the offices, and they are sitting there waiting for people to assemble, to do a resident declaration, to sign a social compact, change their name, and assemble under that national government for the state. Now, does that have anything to do with the government of the United States of America? No, nothing. In other words, we have our own social compact. So any laws that we pass, we're subject to. All the general postmasters are subject to those laws. Nobody else. The states are able to follow them, or they're able to adopt them. No problem. However, they don't have to abide by them. It only subjects the people that are within that social compact. We did that so that others couldn't come in and start trying to take over, like communists and socialists, which is what was happening when we did that. Remember that, John?
Yes, sir. I got some background noise. So.
Okay. But that's what was happening. We were having socialists and communists coming in and trying to change everything into a socialist communist system. So we had to separate in order to preserve the country, which was the United States of America. In order to preserve that, we had to separate the social compacts from the other states, in case they got somebody in there that was a socialist communist and did another ass from a hole in the ground and didn't know how to run a state. However, when basic American nationals are in their North American National Party chapter, which are all separated, they have their own elections. They're not subject to the North American National Party. They have their own chapters, and they run it in accordance to their constitution that was set up for them, and waiting for others to come in and start participating within their state in accordance with the law of nations. That's all that's happening here. And we're running out of time. The world communist revolution is running at lightning speed. Lightning speed. They're going to the real ID crap. They're moving over to the chip. Facebook is setting up a cashless society. That's just coming up. All this stuff. And you have those that come into and try to disrupt. They try to separate everybody. They try to demonize everyone. They try to do all these things. And you're destroying the only government that is offering this to you. They want you to remain as inhabitants and foreigners and subjects with reduced privileges and rights and obligations. And then they treat you like children and say, well, if you violate that right, we're going to take it away from you. We're going to throw you in jail in our detention center. We're running out of time.
Yes, sir. It seems like the closer we get with getting our states open with social compact agreement and everything, that the communists up there and the company that are being hired by that company up there, they're just, I mean, pushing harder every day. They're trying to beat us to the punch and stay in power.
And guess what? They're winning because
Yes,
the
they are.
people refuse. And they want to, oh boy, you tell them they're stateless, they get all upset. Well, you just saw the proof. You are. Your person is stateless. Now, live with it or don't live with it. Do something about it or don't do something about it. That choice is yours.
You come down to the point that if you don't claim it, you can't use it, you can't own it. You've got to make your claim and sign your social compact agreement so you'll be able to function and use it. Otherwise, you'll remain stateless. And you'll be under their thumb from now on. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Keith.
and that's what we're trying to fix. That's a problem. The only way to get rid of socialists and communists is to do a republic form of social compact within your states. It's the only way to get it done. We have ways of getting rid of socialists and communists very quickly within the government of the United States of America. We can sniff you out in 10 seconds. You know exactly what you're doing. And we watch you. When you're not a socialist and communist, and we know that too, everything's fine. Everything's cool. Because you're abiding by your agreements. And you believe that the people have a right to do things. Instead of, hey, let's take away that power. Let's take away that right. Let's do this. Let's do that. Instead of all that, it's what can we do to make it better for them? And also better for ourselves. Every act that's written within the government of the United States of America has nothing to do with anyone other than those people. However, if you continue to refuse a social compact with other people, then the law dictates that you're an inhabitant. And it was written in the original Articles of Confederation. And in that inhabitant, go back to the first part of this T-ROH show. You'll find out what that is. Okay, so all this foolishness that we've been dealing with, we're really not going to answer to. We're not going to deal with it because you're running out of time anyways. You don't have any time for all this foolishness. And folks, if somebody offers you a diplomatic immunity or you have sovereign immunity or they're charging you or whatever it is, which makes you a foreigner, an actual foreigner to your own country or considered a foreigner to your own country, and then claim, oh, I'm not subject to that? No, that's a trap. That's called a legal trap. It's not going to work. Okay, anything else that we're not covering here?
No, sir, I think we got it pretty much covered, Keith.
Mr. Rowe, do you have anything to add? Whoops. He's away from his phone. All right. Thank you for listening to the 126th broadcast of the T-ROH show. We do appreciate the people watching the program. And if you'd like to donate, just please go to the donation button on the right side of the website. That always helps us out because it takes a little time to put these shows together. And you know, that's just the way it is. We got some really good news coming up soon. A lot of really good news. And we will talk about that in the next program. As far as putting connections together on not what is happening, but how the socialists and communists are actually moving through and connecting everything. But the only way to fix it is that social compact. There's no way else to fix it, folks. There's nothing else you can do. I'm just letting you know. There's not a form you can fill out. There's nothing. You have to sign a social compact and start enforcing that social compact. Then they say, well, how do we enforce it? Oh, it's called an alien tort claim. That's how you enforce it. Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.